It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natalie Show. We're live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State, also live on YouTube and on Facebook, having the crucial conversations that Erie needs. And I'm glad to welcome back my friend, Dr. Christopher Gray. He's the president of the Erie County Community College of Pennsylvania. You got to add that, of PA. EC3. Good to see you, Dr. Gray.
That is actually the legal name is Community College of Erie County, Pennsylvania. And then it was doing business as Erie County Community College of Pennsylvania. And then actually it was my interview where I was like, that's way too many syllables to get through this. So I'm going to shorten it to EC3 for now. I'm not proposing that's final, but for the sake of this interview, I don't want to have to say Erie County Community College of Pennsylvania because I don't have the time. So EC3, we're hitting about 5 years now.
All right, I got to start with full disclosure that I am a member of the Board of Trustees. I was selected by the county council there, and it's so cool to learn about the organization, and really it's been something I've been passionate about for 20 years, Chris.
This is the cool part about community colleges. They're really local control, right? So the concept of a community college is to serve its community. So EC3, like the other 14 other community colleges here in Pennsylvania and the 500 across the nation, all have boards that, in some exceptions, but the vast majority of them are folks that are elected or appointed that actually are working in that community, because that's what we do. We don't just have a model that you just apply no matter where you are. You say what matters in that community and how do you design training and education to support that. And so I think we should flip it, and I should get to ask you questions.
There you go.
About what's it been like. I mean, you're walking in and you're probably going, holy cow, there's a lot more.
I'm still trying to get through all the paper. There's so much to learn. But again, I can't believe that it's 5 years since the charter was accepted by the state, right? Did the governor have to sign off on this?
Yeah, so I'll leave the backstories and the history to those that lived it, because those folks are still right here in our community, and it happened because of them. I can talk the technical elements that had to happen.
Yeah.
I know that Governor Wolf, when he came out in favor of it, that changed the tides, and that took some of the local business leaders right here getting on a plane, going down to Harrisburg, and going in the governor's office and saying, "Let's talk." And then there was still resistance at the State Board of Education, right? Mm-hmm. For lots of good reasons, right? Redundancy, extra taxes. There are a lot of good reasons people should be skeptical about about adding anything new, right? But then it took really the Empower Erie group organized the large group that went down to Harrisburg and testified on behalf of the needs of the citizens here in Erie County, and how they've been paying in that tax base for so long and never got the benefit of the community college. And that it was in that moment where a couple of the members of the board, literally, I think it was Bishop Dwayne Brock had taken a group, and he gave some testimony, and he'll share this story, but one member came to him afterwards and said, "When I heard your perspective and how you were speaking for the students, I realized we have to take action." So it was a State Board of Education that voted.
It was right in the middle of COVID, too. So I remember watching these hearings, and people all around the state, from Philadelphia to here, who were members of the State Board of Education. They had to sign off on
One of our local representatives was actually serving on the State Board at the time.
Yeah.
He's since left office and moved on, but it was right here. So, the State Board of Education, there were enough votes that voted for it in favor of it, and then that took about another year or so to get to that point. Then the county had to actually appoint the inaugural board, and then the inaugural board made the great decision to bring in Dr. Judy Gay, who was retired or retiring out of the Community College of Philadelphia to try to prop things up and get them going. And then she started hiring staff, and at the same point they were interviewing for the presidency. And then it was actually Bastille Day 2021, July 14th, I walked into the chamber office. I remember, didn't know where to park, so I parked on the street and paid for parking that day because I wasn't sure if I could park in the lot, and found my way, couldn't find the elevator. I don't know if you remember, before the remodel, it was around the corner, found the elevator, and walked up the third floor, and I'm like, let's do this. So
Wow. And I want you to share the story that you tell about you and your higher ed buddies kind of dreaming what a perfect, or I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but what could be a prototype for the new community college of the 21st century.
Right. So I have to preface this with, I have always been a disruptor. In higher ed, we call it a provocateur. I'm always the one to say, why are we doing that?
Yeah.
Right? Higher ed is the slowest moving industry. We don't change, right? Much of what you see today started happening 2,500 years ago. Like even the gowns we wear at graduation, because that was the gown of the day, right? The sleeves have been altered on graduation gowns because that was their purse. They had a built-in purse that they could carry things walking from town to town. Our tenure system, tenure is 7 years, because that's what they arbitrarily decided. That visiting professor would visit an ancient Greek town for 7 years, and at the end of that 7 years, he'd say to that student, okay, now you're learned, so now you're an equal. And so we've literally just been mimicking that for 2,500 years. So know that up front. I'm always the one to challenge and really say things like, well, why do we bother teaching English anymore? Right? Not that I don't think we should teach English, but if we don't ask that question, how do we articulate to our students? So set that stage. So I'm a peer reviewer for the Higher Learning Commission, which is a sister organization for Middle States, which serves Pennsylvania. I'm at a conference in 2012 to 2015. And I'm also always the guy that gets people to go out for a beer after the sessions, because what are you going to do? Go sit in your hotel room and what are you going to do? Let's go get a beer. Come on, let's be real people. So we're around a campfire, can vividly remember this. And I had just read on Inside Higher Ed or the Chronicle, the attempt under County Executive Barry Grossman. That attempt got shut down.
I remember it very well. So this was a story out of Erie in one of your national trades.
Yep. It was about this. This group of people was wanting to start a new college. And I said, oh my gosh, can you imagine what it would be like to start a brand new college? What would you keep from our current model, and what would you get rid of? Wow. The list, I mean, these are good people. Boom, boom, boom. Get rid of this, get rid of that, get rid of that. But the institution I was at the time, we had a sustainability center because a former board member, that was their passion. Well, we're investing about $350,000 into that department every year. And I kept saying, what's the return? Mm-hmm. And how is that return connected to our mission? I don't argue sustainability is important. I would argue that's not the mission of a higher education unless you're an institution designed around that.
Right.
And now that's just one example. I took that everywhere. So, for instance, at my last institution, we faced a major budget deficit, and my president challenged me and said, hey, we need to cut $2.5 million out of the budget. Challenge accepted. So I went through there, and to me, I said, here's the mission of the college. Here's what we do, right? And so, literally, we had a mental health counseling. We had 6 or 7 full-time counselors, and I said, well, let me see their caseload. Right? And I pulled their caseload, looked at the data, and I found out they were basically running private counseling sessions through the college on taxpayer dollars for our students. So they're our students.
Yeah.
But we don't provide medical services. If someone breaks an arm as a student, I don't feel obligated to provide them medical service and help them put in cast and help with their physical therapy and rehab. Why did we adopt that in higher education? Why did we think we needed to get into the mental health space? Absolutely, we need to deal with crises. We need to understand those are real for our students, but there are a gazillion organizations in every community who specialize in that. So what I did in that case, and really, so that's one example of doing it differently, right? So we always teach 16-week classes. I have no idea why. Nobody knows why, but we've always done it. Everyone's afraid to do that. The data, the research in this area has shown us that adult learners, who are typically the community college serves adult learners learn better in short, intense sessions. All the for-profit colleges figured that out, changed their model. Why are community college? In fact, an institution I used to work at just was in the USA Today this weekend talking about it. They just switched to an 8 weeks because they have a very advanced president. And actually the CAO, I mentored him. I'm taking all credit for it. I mentored him. And when he got charged with this, his first call was to me. He's like, you guys are all 8 week, right? I'm like, yeah. I said, it's challenging. There are some classes that model doesn't fit great, but it serves our students. And if we're here for our students, that ought to be what it was. The great story I tell you, I've told everyone this. I said my very first full year of teaching, I literally taught a 9 o'clock, a 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and a 9:30 and 11 Tuesday, Thursday. Why? Well, I need to drop my children off at childcare, so it was hard for me to get there before 8:30, right? And I had to have the scene shop open, so I built the sets for the plays, and so I needed the scene shop open. But would you schedule your business that way around what your employees wanted? No. But that's what we do in higher ed, right? So when I say I'm a provocateur, so that was it. So we started throwing all these crazy ideas out. Like we knew that the textbook scam, right? textbook publisher making millions of dollars every year. It's not serving students, definitely. It's not serving faculty, right? And I was like, well, what? There's this open educational resource, which was a new concept at the time. I said, let's embrace that, right? Let's all get together and write in our own disciplines, write free textbooks that everybody can use.
Wow.
Because let me be honest, when I'm teaching an intro level course, that subject matter largely has not changed. Now, in some disciplines, that's not true. Some IT, for instance, it gets revolutionized every 3 months, it feels.
Sure.
That one they need to keep up. But I'm teaching basic communication. We're teaching the same principles that have been taught for hundreds of years. So anyhow, so we started talking about this. And then it kind of transitioned to what we call the dream team. Like anybody who wants to say, well, I'm not sure, you're not risk taker enough for us. And so a friend of mine who's now a president of a college back in Illinois, we started with the moniker, like, are they on the dream team? Like, do you think they disrupt it? Would they fight for students enough? Would they fight against boards? Would they fight against unions? Would they fight against tradition? Will they be a voice for the student who don't know how to be a voice? And so that was really the criterion. They didn't have to be super smart, but you had to be willing to fight because our system needs it. And so anyhow, so that literally came about, and years go on. My personal circumstances, I was not on the market. I was not looking for a presidency. In my personal life, I had gone through a divorce a couple years before that. I kept the marital home, so my youngest was a sophomore in high school. I'm staying there until he graduates because my role of dad is way more important than my role as college vice president or college president now, right? And it was actually my children who asked me, do you want to be a president one day? And I said, yeah, sure, at some point. And then later in that conversation, what's your dream job? And I said, well, actually my dream job just opened and just got posted in Erie, PA, and tell them the story. And my youngest is like, well, Dad, why don't you apply for it?
Wow.
And I kind of look at him like, because you're an idiot, Juno. Like, I'm not going to make you pack up and move 4 states away. And frankly, why the hell would they hire me? Like,
right.
I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just this guy who's fighting for students and trying to make changes. And so anyhow, I went ahead and a week later, I said, Juno, could we make this work? And we figured out we could. So then I sat down and talked to the president I was serving at the time, who I had a great deal of respect for. He, too, is a provocateur and gave me the reins to really change things. Wow. And so it really takes a team. It doesn't take one person. One person, you're trying to change culture. 2 people, you are the culture. Anyhow, so fast forward, that's what came about. And so I'm getting to do my dream job right now.
And So this is interesting that you're saying this because it indicates that the board at EC3 wanted to do something different in higher ed.
Yeah, I mean, I came in guns a-blazing. I was like, if you want a traditional college and a traditional college president, I am not your guy.
Yeah.
Like, because I got to be honest, they're going to close, and frankly, I think they should. If you're still trying to protect a model that was valid 50 years ago and it's not today, you shouldn't do it. Yeah, so I mean, I came in guns a-blazing with that, and I said, you want me to do it? Here's the crazy things I think we should do to be successful. So, I mean, most colleges that I'm familiar with, both in my role as employee and as a peer reviewer, most of them are facing pretty serious financial challenges.
Wow.
Right? There's a Hack, one of our local community colleges right here in Pennsylvania, down in Harrisburg. They're trying to sell over 1/3 of their properties.
Really?
Yeah. So here's the great model, right? Presidents want to come in, they want to build a building, get it named after themselves, they move on. Well, that's great. Great deal of excitement. Now you got deferred maintenance. Now you got one more building to take care of. Oh, enrollment climbed in the early 2000s. Oh, let's go build all these new dorms. Let's go do all this. Yeah. Hey, whoa. Look at your data. You may have a short-term problem. Don't build a long-term solution for a short-term problem. But again, education, like literally, if I would have said customer service 10 years ago, my faculty would have done a vote of no confidence and would have tried to get me fired. Our industry finally gets it. Students expect service, right? So we don't call it customer, but you meet students where they are, right? We don't like, I've probably shared this story 100 times. I'll share it again. So I'm walking down the hall with this great faculty member. She's got a class that somehow only has 3 students in it. 3! And tells me it's the greatest class she's ever had, and these students are learning so much more, and this is what we should be doing. And I was like, wow, well, I knew what the data were, but I didn't share with her. I said, well, we should look at the data and see if that's an anomaly or if that's true, because if it's true, and if we decide we as an institution value that, we'd have to then figure out the business model. And she challenges me, well, blah, blah, blah. So then we go walk in the full faculty meeting, so I'm standing in front of 200-300 faculty in this meeting, and I'm a provocateur, but I'm also open and honest, and I'll give you my logic, and you can disagree because there's a lot smarter people than me who often have a lot better solutions. But the reality is the person in that role has got to make a decision based off the information they have. So she stands up, and we go through this whole scenario, and I said, I'm happy to find a business model. And she stands up and says, well, with all due respect, we're not a business. And I had it by that point. I took my readers off, and I finally said, Kate's her name. I said, Kate, I appreciate that, but you know that paycheck that's coming next Friday? I need that to pay my bills. So if we can't at least recognize we're a business, we're missing the point. Half the faculty erupted in applause.
Wow.
So I think there was this section of faculty who are starting to go, oh my gosh, my friends from across the nation are getting laid off. Everyone's getting their salaries frozen. If we don't run like a business, we're going to be closed like a failing business.
Wow.
Because everyone wants to blame. It's all about disinvestment from state. That's true. But I've been in this field since 1997. They've been disinvesting since 1997.
Sure.
Why didn't you figure out a business model that works in that? Mm-hmm. And so it's not just doing it differently from the student side, it's on the business side. One of our core values is what's the business case? Mm-hmm. I love it when you come to me with a great idea. What's the business case for it? Yeah. And if you don't have one, is it important enough that we want to subsidize it with our subsidy that we get from the county and the subsidy we get from the state?
And we have some examples of that where basically the numbers maybe are in a deficit right now, but we're making investments for the future. Dr. Christopher Gray is with us here. We got to take our first break. 423 Talk Erie. Talk Erie and the Joel Natalie Show. Dr. Chris Gray is with us. He's the president of the Erie County Community College. I want to, I mean, we have like this long history of talking about this. You mentioned that you read in a higher ed journal about the failed attempt back in the Grossman administration, but it worked this time. But did it take that Erie's suffering, like our decline in of our economy and the decline of some of the prospects of our young people? Do you think that that's what put us over the edge? I mean, from your expert opinion.
So it's hard for me to venture because I've been here 5 years. I'm an Erieite. I know your listeners will argue and say, no, you got more time to put in. No, stop. I'm not listening. You know what? I put my heart and soul in this place. It's a special place, right? I actually had a conversation with one of the leaders of the hospital systems. He called me on a totally separate issue. And I said, that's one of the cool things about Erie. We're just the right size. We can get all the movers and shakers on the phone together. And if we collectively get together, we can make a difference. That's what it took. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it took the Empower Erie movement to be the voice for all those disparate voices, right? One thing that I've heard, and honestly, we need to document this because we're losing folks that were crucial to this. We need to document. The problem is, like all history, right? We go back and look at anything in history. We only know one person's view of that. The reality was there were so many other views of that history based off the people that were there. That's one of the challenges I have in my job because everyone that was involved with this feels so passionate about their involvement. It is so impossible for me to be able to recognize all the people it took. So I'll tell you, it ultimately, this new effort started, it was Ron DiNicola and Andre Horton had a conversation and said, can we do it? And they joined forces. And there were lots of different folks fighting for it, but they brought it together. Two things happened that I think were, from my understanding, were critical. A, they got the manufacturers on board. The manufacturers who were saying, I don't have skilled people that can fill these jobs. I've got these great paying jobs. I don't have the training necessary. It took the business community saying, we need to make this investment. And then really it was a social argument, right? You said, we've got the biggest poverty in almost all of the state right here. And yet you can't invest state dollars back to give them a pathway out. And that was, I mentioned Bishop Brock before, but that's really what the bishop's argument was, and same thing, the Horton brothers were in that fight. Mm-hmm. The business community was there. So it really took the village of folks. I mean, remember, the voices were strong against this, right? Mm-hmm. It was led the Senate president, the Senate pro tem.
Right, yeah.
One of the reasons we started classes so quickly was because the board was afraid that he or former county executive Brenton Davis would bring a lawsuit to try to stop. And so one of the ideas they made is let's get students enrolled because then a judge would be less likely to issue a stay. Now, I'll tell you, I talk to Brent often. I've talked to Joe Scarnati a few times. They weren't opposed to the community college. They were concerned because there had been so many failed attempts at colleges across the state and so much tax dollar wasted. So I actually remember on my second or third day here, Brent walks in with the swagger of a candidate running for county executive. I didn't know this guy from anywhere.
Yeah. I got 30 seconds. Maybe hold that story because I got to go to break here. Because it's you look at where we were 5 years ago when EC3 started and the amazing trajectory of the community college now. Stay with us. News is next. It's Talk Erie. You've got 105.9, 103.3, and AM 1530 on your radio. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natalie Show, having the crucial conversations that Erie needs from our Kingdom Financial Group studio. Dr. Christopher Gray is with us. He's the president of the Erie County Community College. And again, full disclosure, I'm a member of the Board of Trustees here. And Dr. Gray, I want to talk about, what were some of the projections and what are some of the realities that you're seeing on things like developing programs and how many students and things like that? Because it's kind of superseded the original projections, hasn't it?
Well, so there were two original projections, so it depends on which one you refer to. There was the one that they used the argument of what the community college could be. And so they built that, assumed it was fully funded at the same level that other institutions are, and you automatically started with 30 or 40 faculty and 3 times that many staff. And so if you do that, sure, you can scale up a lot quicker. The reality was, when we started, the state gave us $1.3 million. For those of you that run businesses or know what a small college is going to have an operating budget of over 10.
You're right.
So 1.3 was just not anywhere feasible. The county it makes a significant investment every year as well. But so I think part of that is that. So really, when I came on board, I got with my team and we made projections. They were built off of scaled growth that would allow us to increase the investment from the state, increase the other third of our funding model comes from the student directly.
Yeah. And
we will build appropriately and accordingly to that. So with that, we are actually exceeded enrollment projections almost every semester. So you're seeing we just transitioned now that we have Title IV funding. We've transitioned our models slightly. So we intentionally have slowed growth so we can make sure we get that federal funding in place. And then so that'll be slowed for probably this year. And then it will, we thought it would be slowed. It's not. We're actually, again, we likely will exceed projections, even though we tried to dial them back.
Right.
We continue to exceed. But that just speaks to the fact that folks know that there was a need here that wasn't being filled. We have great sister institutions right here, and we have great relationships, all of them, but they're not designed to serve the type of student that I serve.
Let's remind the folks what Title IV means and the idea of federal funding. And this is a big deal for EC3.
Heck yeah, let's bring some of those federal tax dollars we're all paying. Let's bring them right back here in the county and help. So here's the reality. The average income in Erie County, they have about $100 a month disposable income. So that means that family, that's what they save for vacations, for when their car goes out, for whatever. Higher education would come out of that. $100 a month, $1,200 a year, assuming no vacations, assuming nothing else breaks in their normal life. They're not, frankly, going to be in a position where they can ever invest in higher education, even at the very cost-effective rate that EC3 is at. Mm-hmm. So here's where the federal government comes in play. They fill out the FAFSA. Many of your listeners have probably heard of the FAFSA. It's the Federal Application for Student Financial Aid. They have a whole complex calculation that basically, if you're really poor, you're eligible for a grant at the federal level called the Pell Grant. Here's what the Pell Grant means for a community college student. If you're Pell Grant eligible, and again, if my finance team were here, they'd say, well, you've got to put caveats there because the federal government makes some things. But here's the reality. You can take a full load of classes at EC3. You'll owe less than your Pell Grant. So they're not looking just at your cost of tuition, fees, and books. They're looking at what's the cost of going to college, right? So they understand there's transportation. You might have to take reduced shifts. So you can actually, we think it's going to be about 70 to 80% of our students are going to be Pell eligible. That means the federal government is essentially going to pay for all of their education and give them, in some cases, a small refund to help supplement some of the expenses they're losing during that time.
And a grant is a grant. Doesn't need to be paid.
Yeah, so the federal government also does student loans. You've probably heard all sorts. I'm thinking I've shared that my ex-wife and I borrowed a total of $16,900 and paid back $129,000 before we paid them off. We're not offering student loans through EC3. Here's the frank reality. The students don't need it. If they're Pell eligible, they don't need it. There are some students who aren't going to be qualified as Pell eligible, but don't really come from households that have the kind of money to pay for it. So we're working with our foundation. We're working with the generosity of donors to try to find other sources to help bridge that gap for that small amount of students. But here's why. It's a business decision. So we know, again, we're educators. We follow data. Mm-hmm. In areas where there's high poverty, there's often high default rates on loans, and there's often high fraud. right? When people are desperate, they'll take a risk to survive. So what happens is you'll get pockets of criminals who will realize there's a way to milk the Pell Grant and student loans. They'll talk some poor, desperate person into using their social number, apply.
Wow.
They never intend to go to class. Well, what happens from the federal level is they say, hey, college, you have 1 out of 4 people aren't paying their loans back that you gave the loan to on behalf of the federal government. So then the federal government steps in and says, so now you no longer give away our grants or our loans.
Yeah, it's
just
derogatory on the college.
We just took a stand and said, and we do this a lot of times. You see this in urban centers. That's where it tends to happen more often. We just put our foot down and said, no, we know that we can serve them, and we will pledge to keep costs down in every other way, so we don't penalize those that are just above the federal line. Wow. So we've worked with some private banks. We've been trying to see if we can try to work with private banks to get a better loan. Ultimately, it could hurt the student. They might pay a point or two more through a private loan. But the reality is, in that case, it doesn't jeopardize the Pell Grant for all the residents here in Erie County who deserve access to those federal funds.
Yeah, it makes sense. Again, you got to protect the main thing, right? Let's talk about how programming has expanded over these past 5 years, and I want to especially talk about the new Center for Health Sciences, which is really a class, high-end learning center there for health stuff.
Yeah, so when we started, Dr. Gay and a couple consultants grabbed a couple programs that tend to do well at other community colleges and threw them in place. And that was our liberal arts program, which is our transfer-oriented program. And then they offered an IT degree and a business degree. And so we started with 3 degrees, right? So students had 3 choices. Well, one of the things we do poorly, by the way, I think 3 majors in college is really all we need.
Interesting.
No one would ever agree with me on that, and most of the people that work in higher ed would tell you I'm crazy for saying that.
Yeah.
But we spend so much time talking about majors. Majors are so unimportant in the scheme of life. Unless you're going to do a very specialized job that has a very specialized set of skills, the vast majority is for just looking for broad skills that can be applied in the very changing landscape that is the work world. Anyhow, so since then we've now expanded. We have over 20 degrees and certificates. Okay. So we've expanded into our business programs are huge. Right? A lot of students come into business, and so we take it from an entrepreneurial lens. Again, that's thinking differently about college. Why teach you the old business practices of the last 50 years when we know the vast majority of new businesses are they're scaling differently and so forth. So we're trying to teach people the basic business skills, but to apply it in the 21st and beyond century model. So then we have an IT program. We've expanded that a number of times. Instead of just one broad, say, hey, I'm trained in IT, we've broken it down. We've got some mobile app training. We've got some networking training. We have some programming. We have a help desk certificate because there's a lot of jobs where people need the basic skills to do help desk. And then really the one you want to talk about, the Center for Health Sciences, so that's in our healthcare division. So healthcare, we have a number of programs already, but this Center for Health Science will allow us to expand those. So we've got a surgical tech program, and that was a great partnership with UPMC. Literally the first month we were here, I met with one of the leaders at UPMC and said, hey, I've got surgeons threatening to leave our system because I can't keep our surgery suites open. I don't have enough surge techs.
Wow.
And on the lay terms, think of the nurse that's in the... Yeah. Way. I don't mean to minimize.
When they say scalpel, it's the tech that's giving the doc the scalpel.
Yeah, it's the people who are especially trained in that.
They're scrubbed in.
Yeah, yeah. And so I literally said, "Well, that's great. There's no way." At that point, we didn't have a real permanent spot, but we got creative, and so we partnered with UPMC and the University of Pittsburgh. So we actually take their employees for the most part. People that work in their cafeteria or in their intake side, and we skill them up.
Wow.
So they're making more than our professors make, right? And so they go through the training. So we do the gen ed and all the science, the back end training, because I had the ability to do that, and we've partnered with UPMC. That model's taken off. Now UPMC Chautauqua has reached out to us and asked us to do that in another area. Wow. Right? So then the other thing we do certified nursing assistant training. We actually have a pinning, our very first pinning for that. And so a pinning is like it's unique to the nursing culture, but it's like a small graduation. It's very special. It's like a family tradition in some ways. Yeah. And so we have our first pinning coming up in the very near future. And then we've added some other degrees. So for instance, the behavioral health. We're finding just like we have patient care tech training. So if you think patient care tech, the person that takes care of you when you're in the hospital. So they're the ones that are coming in saying, how you feeling? Do you want your sheets changed? Are you ready to take a shower today? What are you thinking about for food? I'll tell you, having spent a lot of time in the hospital in the years before my mom passed, that patient care tech was the one my mom would always thought it was a nurse.
Right.
It wasn't. It was the patient care tech.
Right.
But they are the ones that develop the relationship with the patients, and so we do training in that. But on the mental health side, there's a need for a patient care tech as well that's just kind of new. So our faculty actually created this degree working with a local advisory board. So we have a behavioral health program. We're training people to work in behavioral health facilities. So they need to understand what folks with behavioral health issues, the array of issues that may have there, how some of those behaviors may come out, how they are processing, how they are dealing with crisis, and so all that. And so then ultimately what our practical nursing program is the one that's getting ready to kick off here. We have our first class starting actually in a week from today. Our first class of practical nurses will start. And then from there, the Center for Health Sciences it's designed differently. It's not designed like most colleges, again, because we need to design it differently to do better. There's an old saying, ordinary efforts get ordinary results. So I'm always challenging my staff. I want the extraordinary effort. Right? We're not going to hit out of the ballpark every time, but why not try? All we can do is fail and we'll just pick up and go on. But yeah, so from that, we'll be able to expand it. I know we've got, we're in some really pretty good conversations with LECOM, which is a huge healthcare system here. They're trying to say, here's areas of healthcare that isn't our fit. Are they fits for you? So we're trying to collaborate on those. I'm not sure I'm supposed to let the cat out of the bag on this, but one of the local hospital systems is actually recognizing us as partner with a partner award because of what we've been able to do with them.
Fantastic,
and so as you as a board member will see that email soon because I think we'll invite our board to come celebrate that. But that will give us the opportunity to really grow in that. So in most community colleges, like all the community colleges I worked at, we do the whole gamut in healthcare. So occupational therapy assistance, respiratory therapy, we do the first aid, EMT, CPR training. We'll do I'm blanking on the word, the blood drawer. People.
Yeah, the phlebotomy.
Phlebotomist, yeah. So we just do the gamut of training in healthcare. And we're going slowly at it because all those are expensive.
Sure.
Like, I can't just jump in and do that.
This is one of those programs where you're making the investment because the community need is there. Doesn't always pencil out financially, though.
I lose my butt on nursing training. Wow. Every nurse I graduate costs the taxpayers a significant amount of money. But I'll tell you what, Erie County cannot thrive if we don't have nurses to fill the jobs. Yeah. And one thing we know about community college students, the vast majority of them stay right in the area where they grow up. So the folks that are coming through our program will likely be the folks you're going to serve. I've joked about this by the time I'm dead, hopefully I live a normal life, you won't interact with any public servant in the healthcare, the frontline responders that won't have been trained at EC3. That's the reality of what we do. At my last institution, we had a fire academy. Every firefighter within a 50-mile radius was on that campus in those towers, training with all the different chiefs, with all the different equipment. The returning firefighters were coming back to get recertified there. We didn't have a police academy. Lots of institutions do. So we'll train the police, get them ready for the academy, or in some small municipalities, they don't actually have an academy, so they rely on the community college training. Right. So, and then everywhere in the healthcare. And so when my oldest child was born, our nursing students were actually working in the hospital as part of their training. And I remember going, I'm super uncomfortable with this. Like, I had students that were in my class that were going to be in the room when my ex-wife gave birth to my child. And I finally saw, this is really weird. So I pulled one of the instructors aside and I said, I hate to be this way, but is there any way they can not be there? Because I don't know how I look at my student the same after that. She's like, absolutely. And so they pulled them out.
Wow.
I said, they're welcome to help when the baby's born to come do it. Just the birthing part, like, it's weird to me.
It's intimate.
But that's the reality of a community college.
Right.
Like, we are of the community.
Yeah, everybody's everywhere. Let's switch over to manufacturing, and I want to kind of get your thoughts on what the current conversation is. And so I don't know how many conversations I've had in the last month about shipbuilding. And I think EC3 or the community college has been brought up nearly in every conversation about EC3 being kind of a supplier of this trained workforce in the eventuality that we get this kind of opportunity. Give us give us a broad look at of training in manufacturing trades.
Yeah, so let's set the stage around the conversation about maritime. So really, it's President Trump has said he and the federal government want to reinvest in rebuilding our infrastructure, particularly in the naval side.
In defense and in Navy,
Yeah. And so being a port city, we're one of the rare ones that can actually jump up and do that. So let's set the stage there, because a lot of folks are like, why are we talking this? Well, because we haven't invested a lot in that. No. And so for lots of reasons, and I'm certainly not an expert on that and don't pretend to be, but so let's talk what the training in maritime looks like. It depends, frankly. The answer is how will EC3 be involved? It's going to depend on what does that look like. What types of ships are we building? Are we building ships? Are we repairing ships? Are we building munitions for ships? So until that plan gets a little further down the road, that's when we as the educator come in. But we stand ready. We've had great conversations with our federal and state offices and even the county executive Vogel. We're there, right?
You have ongoing training though up at the VOTEC, right?
We're pumping out welders that are getting jobs before they finish classes.
Wow.
We've partnered with the VOTEC High School to make sure all their students are getting both post-secondary credit and high school credit while they're doing the programming. We've got CNC out there, and so when you're driving down the roads, if you see operator wanted, that typically is a CNC operator. And so to break it down for your non-manufacturing folks, think of a mill or a lathe. It's the computer versions of those. That's really what's making most parts in a modern manufacturing plant. We also offer industrial maintenance technology training. And so that, I always explain these because I didn't know what they were until I got into space. Yeah. The IMT, so think about it. Excuse me. If you're running a line and the line stops for any reason, you're losing dollars.
Sure.
So what you need is somebody can quickly come in, diagnose. Is this an electrical issue? Is it an optical issue? What is it? Like a great story an old IMT instructor gave is they had all this problem. They had all this problem, this machine, blah, blah, blah. The old guy walks in, immediately looks up at the window and says, there's your problem. It was literally sunlight was interrupting an optical sensor.
Oh, my goodness.
Put a curtain up. So that's what IMT are trained in. They get a really broad base of skills from everything from electronics to electrical, sometimes HVAC.
Hydraulics.
Hydraulics, pneumatic, all of them, right? They got to have a base level training so they can quickly diagnose, like, do I need a specialist? Or is this you know what, that actuator's out, let me swap that out and go. And so that training is needed in just about every manufacturing plant. So we do training in there. And then with that, then we have all sorts of specialized, some of those specialties we just mentioned. And so,
talk about dual enrollment. This is another thing that fascinates me. And you're all about having the high school, the kid get the high school credit and the college credit all at once. They could save thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So here's the reality, and we've known this in higher ed, and we're just dumb about it. Any kid who gets any college credit while they're in high school stands an 82% chance of completing some sort of college credential. 82% chance. Why in the heck would we not invest in that? Mm-hmm. Well, here's why. Because they want it to be their logo on the shirt, right? We're so scared about that. But we're not. That's not us. We are the community's college, right? So I want to work with all of our feeder districts and say, we need to get your students credit. In fact, I was just at a lunch today with one of the local superintendents, and I said, hey, you doing any AP classes? Because if you're doing an AP class, there's a high likelihood you're already teaching the right curriculum. If that instructor happens to have the right credentials, why would we not give that student for free college credit? They're probably not coming to me. That's okay. They're going to take that credit on. Now, AP transfers, typically okay. It gets a little wonky. College credit, there's no issue. Once it's on a college transcript, it's pretty much a done deal. It will transfer in. So where AP, you have to go lobby for what courses does it meet. College credit, you do both. I say do both. I'm not trying to say choose one or the other. Do both, right? So yeah, we're sitting on a PDE grant to increase. Governor Shapiro's administration recognizes this. And so he's one of 15 institutions that received $1 million grant. And so we're giving free dual credit to almost every school district in Erie County has a student taking it. Some at their campus, right? So I'm not sure it's public, but like General McLean, we'll actually have faculty down there teaching for them.
Wow.
Because they've got some dual credit classes. A lot of students go to the Regional Choice Initiative that IU5 coordinates at the Skills Center next to VOTEC High School. We have a number of students from Erie Public School System that come onto our campus every morning. They actually, their whole junior and senior year, half of it's on our campus, half of it's there.
Wow.
Technically at graduation, they are graduating with their associate degree, 2 years of college, debt-free, and then later that day they go to the high school and get their high school diploma. So
wow.
Yeah, so that's what
you wanted.
Yeah. I mean, look at that. Look, I got 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
I would have loved to have not had 2 years of college payments.
Quickly, again, we're talking to Dr. Chris Gray. Tomorrow's Erie Gives, the EC3 Foundation. What does it do? How does it help students?
So in 2 ways, right? So let me talk first, the Flat Tire Fund. You're all probably sick of this story, but here's the reality. If any of us in this room or any of your listeners get a flat tire, it's a nuisance at worst, right? Shoot, I got to pull over. I got to change it if I know how. I got to call a tow company at worst. Probably going to have to buy a new tire because it's always in the sidewall. It never can be plugged anymore.
Yep.
I'm an old farm boy. I still plug them.
Mm-hmm.
So just going to warn you. But here's the reality. That $40 or that $100 or whatever, that's, you know what, it's a nuisance. You know what? So now I'm going to have to maybe not go out Friday night for dinner. All right, I make that choice. For my students, whether it's 40, 400, or 4,000, it's often out of reach. So one thing we do is we raise money for what's called our emergency fund. So when a student gets an unexpected dental bill and they come and say, I have to drop my classes because I have to go pick up another part-time job, we say, whoa, what's going on? Let's not give a long-term solution to a short-term problem. So that's one way in which if folks are choose to give tomorrow, we'll use that money in the emergency fund. So we're really helping, a student who comes with a crisis. It's a one-time, once a year. Look, if you can't afford your rent, college isn't right for you right now. Mm-hmm. But if you have a window that somebody broke out and your insurance won't pay, and you're going to have to drop out of school, we may be able on one time to help you get through that crisis, right? 80% of our full-time employees all give to that fund because we see it firsthand. Mm-hmm. And then the other you can do, I'm breaking news here, so I'm actually endowing a scholarship in my mother's name.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to endow a scholarship, and from that means from now into perpetuity, a lifetime of perpetuity, so 25 or so years, that the money that I've been able to donate to our foundation will generate enough interest off of it that students will receive a scholarship every time. So that's our scholarship fund. So we have the emergency fund and the general scholarship fund. Donors are welcome to identify if they'd like to. I would encourage, if you're ever giving money to anyone, try not to restrict it, because typically if you trust the institution, and you probably do if you're going to give to them, trust that they know how they can use that most. We had a donor at a college I worked to gave over $1.5 million to a community college for students studying piano. Challenge there is no one studies piano.
Right.
They take piano classes. Yeah. And so it was very challenging because his will had laid out, so it sat there for 10 years until we were able to go back to the estate and say, can we repurpose the money to support students studying music?
There you go.
And so I'll always work with the organization. I've got about 15 organizations on my list I'm going to give to tomorrow.
Wonderful. So. Real quick, we're taking registrations now. When does the fall semester start?
Well, a week from today.
Oh, my gosh.
Hey, if you want to be a real tough on me, I'm actually teaching a class, so you're welcome to come teach.
Which one is that?
Public speaking.
I think I might have that one down, though.
Yeah, you want to teach for us?
I might be able to clep out, right? Do they still clep things?
You might want to teach for us, though. So.
Dr. Christopher Gray, congratulations on 5 years of EC3. Back after this.